Всім привіт! Мене звати Лера, і це інтерв'ю з Мікаелем Колвілл-Андерсеном, яке було записано ще 1 листопада, але я викладаю лише зараз, бо було всякі, знаєте, такі штуки, які мене відволікали. Тож ви розумієте, що сьогодні це було не сьогодні, і вчора це було не вчора. Тому приємного перегляду. Дисклеймер, можу сказати, що я була дуже знервована перед інтерв'ю, тому я забула привітатись, тому все привіталась. Дивіться, насолоджуйтесь. Сподіваюсь, що я витратила свій час на монтування цього прекрасного інтерв'ю надарма і вам сподобається.
How long have you been in Ukraine here?
Since June 22.
How did your friends and people who know you reacted to your decision to go there? Weren't they saying like, it's dangerous, how can you go there, and why?
Yeah, well, first of all, I received an email in April 22 from urban planning colleagues in Ukraine asking me for help if I could get some used bicycles from Europe and bring them to Ukraine so they could deliver humanitarian aid on these bicycles because of all the problems in the country. And so there was just after the Russians pulled away from Kyiv, so that pressure was off. And then everybody in Denmark, everybody was sending so much money to, humanitarian organizations to help Ukraine. But then it kind of just died. And so I was trying to crowdfund this project and it wasn't getting a lot of crowdfunding. So I said in June 22, I said, I'm just going to go. And because I knew the reaction from people would be like, what? You're going to Ukraine? And I tripled the crowdfunding because I came here for 10 days. And so everybody thought it was crazy, especially in June 22. But my friends here said, everything's fine, everything's fine. So of course I trusted the people who were here. But yeah, worried. My daughter, especially, my son was kind of like, oh, cool. I think a lot of people back then thought it was a crazy thing to do. But if that helped me get crowdfunding, then that was a good thing. Still, even now in Denmark, we don't really have any, Ukraine fatigue. We're still supporting, politically, Ukraine, but Ukraine has kind of disappeared, but people still think that it's like, that Kyiv is a war zone, that there's, gun battles outside the windows. They haven't really followed the reality of life in Kyiv. So they still think it's kind of crazy. And my son, actually, he's 22. He's coming next week, to visit. And all of his friends are going, what? Oh my God, so it kind of makes you look cool if you do it. If you're rational about it and you know that your friends here tell you it's safe, then it makes you look kind of badass. So that's cool.
I just was going to ask you about bikes for Ukraine. What is it, and how this idea came in your mind? And do you have some help, I don't know, from Danish government, or it's just you?
So it was this email I got from 2 urban planners here who knew about me, and said, oh my God, that guy in Denmark, he can maybe help. And I remember getting the email in April 22, completely paralyzed because of this invasion in Denmark, and then I get this email from colleagues asking me for help. So that was amazing that they were asking me, and that there was something that I could do. I didn't know how to get bikes or how to ship anything, but I thought I got to do this. So that's what I started to do. I got donations from people in Copenhagen who donated an extra bike, and I got the Danish police to donate abandoned bikes. We have so many abandoned bikes in Denmark, 400,000 a year. And so they were happy to give me some bikes that would otherwise go to recycling. And that's how that started. The first shipment arrived in the beginning of July 22. And then that shipment was for internally displaced people in Lviv, in the refugee camps in the city, so that they had some mobility, because mobility in Lviv was paralyzed then. 200,000 extra people had arrived in the city, so there was traffic jams. The trams were busy, so bikes were a mobility solution. But I learned soon after we started getting a lot of appeals from the rest of Ukraine saying we need bikes for our social workers and our volunteers to deliver food, medicine, water, humanitarian aid to the most vulnerable citizens, you know, the babusia, or the, you know, the ill people outside of the cities. So that became a greater need for bikes, and that's where most of our bikes go now. We just came back from Konotop yesterday.
We've arrived in the city of Konotop in the Sumy Oblast with all of these bike drawings from kids in the city saying hello to the people of Ukraine. Things like, you know, Privit, hello, good luck.
Where we gave bikes to some social workers in one of the hormadas around outside of Konotop, and they will use the bikes to deliver all this stuff to, you know, the older people outside on the farms. So it wasn't my idea. It was my colleagues here who said, let's try and ask this guy. And so crowdfunding still sucks now. I can get all the bikes I want in Europe, but I don't have the crowdfunding to pay for the trucks. And I sometimes have sponsors, but not all the time anymore. But we have a shipment. We had just had a shipment from a town in France. They got together and donated bikes and sent them here by themselves. So we sent them to Konotop and Kherson. And we have a truck coming probably next week from Germany with 150 bikes that we will distribute to our network in Ukraine. So, I mean, these bikes, you know, the poetry is amazing. Used bicycles arrive as registered as humanitarian aid. And then they turn around and they start delivering humanitarian aid, you know. So the poetry of a simple unwanted bicycle from Europe changing lives daily in Ukraine is, you know, it never gets old.
Do you need some help? You said about donations.
Yeah, we have like international crowdfunder. We also have now we have a monobank, but it's mostly, I mean, a truck is expensive. It's like 4,000 euros to come from Europe to Kyiv, which is a lot. So we do get crowdfunding still, but just not enough to pay for trucks. And I'm doing so many other urbanism projects now in Ukraine that it takes a lot of time to keep focusing on bikes for Ukraine. But we're experiencing a weird phase where a lot of people are contacting us. There's been a lot of press. There was some interview with me in France, which caused this city to send bikes. This guy in Germany has 150 bikes, and he heard about me from some other guy. So it's kind of like picking up again, as it were. And we're hoping to get some more. Like I'm still fighting to get like more political support in Denmark, because we all know that we have 400,000 bikes that we throw away every year. Nobody wants to throw away the bikes. If they can change lives in Ukraine, then that's great. But like, I got to figure out, you know, how to get the government to somehow pay for the trucks. But so I'm still working on all of that. But yeah.
Can you tell us about your life before you moved here and how much it's changed for you since?
I mean, I'm an urban designer, urban planner. So I've been working around the world, fixing cities, designing bicycle infrastructure in cities for many, many years, 15, 20 years. And so, yeah, that was, I wasn't doing that much. I have a TV series, so I was focused on making my international TV series.
Expensive in Denmark. So this will be yet another housing development for people with means. And then we hear about the whole population growth angle. Oh my God, all these.
So I was kind of, yeah, and I did a lot of like, you know, keynotes, the main speaker at conferences. Yeah, I just came to Ukraine because they asked me to, and then, you know, then I went away and tried to get more bikes, but normal life. And then I started coming back to Ukraine with more bikes. And then every time I came back, I started to stay a little bit longer. And then at some point I was meeting the mayor of Mykolayiv, Alexander Sienkiewicz, and Mykolayiv is like Denmark's city, right? We're taking care of Mykolayiv. Yeah. And he said, hey, you know, you're this famous urban planner guy. Can you make Mykolayiv the Copenhagen of Ukraine by designing bicycle infrastructure? And I said, that's not why I'm here, dude. But he's a really cool guy. And I had a team spend like 4 months doing this huge bicycle strategy for Mykolayiv. We still haven't figured out who's going to pay for it. I'm still trying to get the Danish government to pay for it. It's like the most Danish story you can imagine in Ukraine, that used bicycles come from Denmark, and we designed the infrastructure based on Copenhagen model in Mykolajiv, and everything is great. But then because it, like, that was sort of the start, I realized that there's so much more that I can do, how I can use my experience and my skills to help daily life with urbanism in Ukraine. So more and more projects started appearing. I started doing like workshops with kids about urbanism, did a lot of tactical urbanism here in Podil, fixing stuff, and social media about, how Kyiv is rather broken. So if you improve the daily life for people living here, then that helps them maybe forget the war a little bit, urbanism is a powerful tool. It's a powerful medicine. So, and that's what I realized. I know how urbanism works. I know the value of it as a tool in cities, but I realized in Ukraine that, it's much more powerful as a tool. So like I said, if you can just, the simple act of going out onto your street in front of your apartment and planting a tree with your neighbors, that's something we see in all over the world with urbanism. But then here it just becomes absolutely amplified. It becomes like a way of forgetting the war for a bit. And then every time you walk past the tree, you're going, we planted that, and how's the tree doing? And so it becomes a symbol for not only resilience, but also, mental health, so there's so many things I can do here that I can't do anywhere else in the world. And I can do them much faster. So I get to use my skill set and my experience in a way I've never thought I could before in other places, where it's usually a boring process with the city. You have to have lots of meetings, and there's a budget and everything. Here it's just like, fuck it, do it, build a therapy garden for mental health. Okay, I just built one of those, 4,500 square meters together with friends and volunteers. So yeah, that makes it interesting that I can do stuff I can't do anywhere else, and the purpose of it is much more important in a war zone.
You mentioned your therapy garden. What's the difference between this one and usual? And so you were asked to do that, right?
No, nothing. Most of the things happen randomly. I met a woman in a bar, a colleague of mine from Germany who works with mental health, helping Ukraine. And she said, oh, we bought an old sanatorium up near Chernihiv, and we're going to make a mental health facility for people to stay at. And she's showing me the photos of the grass down to the river. And I said, oh, well, you need a therapy garden there. And she says, what's a therapy garden? And I thought, well, why don't you know this? Like, you work with mental health. And then I started looking at it, and we have them all over Denmark. Every town has a therapy garden. And I realized that all the science was done in Denmark like 15 years ago, and it was never exported. So I went, okay, Ukraine, needs mental health help more than anywhere else in Europe. And so I started looking at this idea, and a friend of mine said, oh, there's some land here in Podil, an abandoned piece of land. And so I started looking at that. And then another friend said, oh, there's a hospital, Pavlova. They have Europe's largest psychiatric hospital. And I said, oh, that's a better location. So everything was just freestyle. Everything I do is freestyle. So I didn't have any plans to do this. I'm not a landscape architect, but I guess I am now. And it was easy to copy paste the science and apply it to Ukraine. So the difference, like many places around the world have like a therapeutic garden next to hospitals, just sitting in nature. It doesn't matter what's wrong with you. We know that this is proven to help you reduce your stress. But the science from Denmark, using certain design interventions, we have proven that you can heal mental trauma and PTSD. It's literally a medicine. And that's what we did out here. So we imported this sort of next level concept to Ukraine. So that's the difference. It's a healing forest. And instead of just like taking some stress off your daily life. And so, yeah, I don't want to build anymore, but, I want other cities in Ukraine to look at this and say, it's pretty easy to do. You don't need, it's all open source. I just want everybody to make more of them in Ukraine. So, and in Denmark, like I said, we didn't have any. And then the science came along and we went, oh, that's cool. So every town has a therapy garden now for regular citizens, but also our veterans from the wars that Danish soldiers have been in. So it's all, this is the most obvious place to export the knowledge and design to.
Thank you. And why it was staged? Because I've heard about your Tolokas.
Yeah.
So is it opened, or you need to do something?
Yeah, no, it opened in June. Yeah, we had it was getting, I had no funding back in March. Like, people were promising me funding, but I had nothing. And it's a garden, so you know, a forest, you have to get to work in the spring, right? I'm not an expert, but I know you have to start planting stuff in spring. So I said, okay, fuck it, let's just do it. Let's just call for volunteers to come and clean the land of all the dead wood and also a lot of the garbage. And I thought maybe 50 people might show up, but 500 people showed up on that first Toloka weekend. 300 on Saturday, 200 on Sunday. It was like just amazing. So we had like 11 weeks of Tolokas, and we had like over 1,000 volunteers helping us build it and clear the land and do all the work, as well as a Ukrainian landscape architecture company called L Design. They volunteered 4 architects to help us with that side of the job. So yeah, we just whipped that thing together, and it opened. It's working. We have talked to the staff of the hospital, and they use it a lot more. And a lot of the patients there, a lot of the veterans who are there, are using it daily. So it's open, and you know, and people. There's some people like on Facebook going, "Oh, I went there. There's nothing there." I mean, no, it's not. It's not like Disneyland. It's just it's just a forest for the people who need it, right? So it's working as better than we hoped. And like I said, I want other cities to be inspired to make similar ones in other cities in Ukraine.
You said you have Tolokas on Sunday and Saturdays. Are they for something different, or is it for therapy garden?
Okay, therapy garden is finished. So then I live in Podil, and then the original piece of land, I'm pointing because it's like 50 meters from our office here. We also started an NGO now called DIY Ukraine. So all of our activities are based on this new NGO. And so that piece of land that I originally looked at, it's been abandoned for 40 years. Just walls around it and a gate, you know, and so we just broke down the gate. We've applied for permission to rent the land from the city for social purposes. And we said, yeah, let's just go in and do it. You know, we need another park here in Podil. And so this one became a different idea. We're designing and building one of the first community gardens in Ukraine. Completely normal concept everywhere else in the world. Even like Krakow has a city community garden where citizens can just go and grow their own food. So yeah, that's what we're building there. So half of it will be community garden, where somebody who lives in Podil can pay like, I don't know, 500 a year to be in the community, share the tools, share the experiences of how to grow vegetables, and each person will have their own, you know. Flower box to grow their potatoes or their beets in. The other half will be kind of a trauma sensitive therapy space, just a nice cool space in the summer to sit in amongst the trees and you know, take a load off your mind, right? So yeah, that's our Tolokas every weekend at the moment, is that space. It's just like it's more of a personal project really, and it's really cool because it's in my neighborhood, and I'm 50 meters away, and there's a hotel here called Bursa Hotel. They give us their compost. They give us all their vegetable peels and everything. We just picked up 50 kilograms today. So we're making a compost in this garden so we're getting ready for the springtime when everybody can, join the community and start growing stuff together. Right. And the purpose of a community garden is food security, so you growing your own food, which is important in every city, but especially in a war zone. Learning skills, how to garden, how to become a babushka, and then growing potatoes and beets. Sharing experiences with the other neighbors, like, oh, your tomato plants are doing amazing, mine suck, what are you doing? Oh, So you create interpersonal relationships, and this social aspect is also insanely important in a war zone when we're constantly under threat of missile strikes. You know, having a place, garden therapy is well established also as a thing. So yeah, we're creating this space for that one, first one in Ukraine. I can't find any other examples here. They have them in Bulgaria, Romania, Albania, Poland, you know, but it just never crossed the border to Ukraine. So we're going to also establish this concept and a proof of concept so people can also build it in other places.
Yeah, that sounds cool. We were talking about mental health, and you know, when it's war, you need to kind of keep it, you know, in check. Do you have some ways to, you know, to do that?
Alcohol. No, I'm just kidding. Wine bars. No, I mean, all the things that I know from urbanism, you know, like I said before, they apply 100 times more in a war zone. Anything you can do to improve, to eliminate that stress of having shitty sidewalks or you know, cars parked everywhere, or you know, a lack of trees, you know, anything you can do to improve that literally is a kind of medicine. So it's and then, you know, the Ukrainians famously have been very solid, you know, showed a lot of solidarity from the beginning, crowdfunding for each other, talking to each other like they never did before in this post-Soviet culture, you know, and so it's kind of, you know, less intense now because we're all tired of this invasion. But so anything we can do to create interpersonal relationships, you know, in a garden, and create a little kind of a community focused on one topic, you know, growing food, or whatever it is. You know, if you have a knitting workshop, you know, you just sit there and you learn how to knit with some neighbor, whatever it is. Anything we can do to bring people together and share a common interest is important, because it does take your brain away, you know, from the war. It does help calm you. It gives you something else to do. Talking to people is incredibly important. So yeah, it's and in the urbanism context, you know, that's, I know how to do that. So it's creating these, you know, an urban space where people can do this, reclaiming an abandoned piece of land that nobody's even seen the inside of for 40 years. You know, we have tolokas every weekend. We took down the gates, and you know, so many people walk on Saturdays and Sundays in Kyiv. So people are stopping and go, oh, this is open now. Wow. And we almost need like a person standing at the gate talking to people. I made big posters about explaining what we're doing. So it's really interesting. Also, you know, those kind of interpersonal relationships, just talking to strangers. What are you guys doing? Well, they're doing this. Oh, wow, cool. You know, how can I be involved? Can I come to the Toloka next weekend? It's really important. And it's all part of the big picture.
Yeah. Is there like things that you love about being so far, like, or do you have things that confuse you, like you don't understand them?
About what?
Like you live in here and you see things that kind of confuse you that you haven't seen before, like both live in Denmark.
Like generally, culturally, no. I lived in the Soviet Union way back. I've worked a lot in Eastern Europe. So the Eastern European kind of culture, you know, it's not that different. We eat the same food as in Denmark. We eat pork and beets and potatoes, you know, so there's no culture shock in that sense. I think, you know, as an urban designer, yeah, it's amazing how broken this city is. That surprised me, literally how shitty this city is. I don't like Kyiv at all. I love being here, and I'm here. I have an apartment and everything, and I'm doing my projects. But like as a city, oh my God, it's completely broken. And so cars parked on sidewalks just boggles my mind every day. How, you know, it's just nobody's doing anything about this, where other cities around Europe have been doing it for years, you know. So that's a constant shock, even after 2.5 years. That's just how insane the traffic is, and the lack of interest in doing anything about it, reducing the number of cars to, you know, improve public health, you know, and safety. You know, this Ukraine is number 2 in the world, in Europe, for traffic fatalities. The traffic safety is insane here. So that's a culture shock. Seeing what you see here, you usually see that in some big, crazy African city, you know, and I'm seeing it in the capital of a European country, right? It's really bizarre. But yeah, everything else culturally, it's you know, it's not hard to be here, you know. And like, I mean, I said alcohol before, but yeah, cafes and wine bars and you know, going out with friends and culture and everything, you know, that makes it, you know, makes it great after work, you know, to be able to have that high quality of cafe bar life and cultural offerings, you know. That, you know, that helps a lot compared to being in a smaller city like Lviv, where there's like 2 exhibitions a month, you know, where here it's a big capital city, right? So yeah, so it's I don't like this city, but I love being here.
Have you been in Ukraine before this full-scale invasion?
Yeah, 1992, just after independence, I traveled through Kyiv and Odessa and Crimea and everything like that. But yeah, that was. I lived in the Soviet Union before that, so there was no difference then. It was just like, oh, you're independent now, but you all look exactly the same, and nothing's changed. So, having seen that in 1992 and then coming back here, you know, 2 years ago, yeah, that was a big difference, right? Lots of ugly, horrible developer buildings everywhere, and totally different landscape and you know, cityscape. So that's just interesting to see how a city has changed, you know, over 30 years.
So here the blitz. Would you rather choose movie or book?
Sorry?
Would you rather choose movie or a book
For what?
for like evening?
For the evenings?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I read a lot, but I'm reading less here. It's also part of the, you know, the war zone experience. You know, my girlfriend and I spend more time at home in the evenings, but yeah, I would say movie. I went to one last night at the film festival at Joften, and we're going to another film tonight. So I would say movie at the moment.
Do you have your favorite one? Danish or not necessarily Danish movie?
No, I went to film school. I can't tell you one thing. I can't. Never been able to say one film. No, I like European art house films. You know, I don't like the Hollywood crap. So I like, you know, good human stories, whether it's from the 60s or from today, you know, and documentaries as well. So yeah, can't say a favorite.
Do you have some Danish movie you would like to recommend?
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, I have this plan, which I just remembered. I had a plan for a Danish film festival here in Kyiv, like just 1 week where we show Danish movies that I select. Geez, I totally forgot about that project. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, there's one. It's called what the hell is it called? It's called Under the Sand. Wait, that's maybe a translation. Hang on. It's a Second World War film. Oh yeah, there it is. And where did you go? There you go. It's called Land of Mine.
I kind of heard about it.
Huh?
I heard about this one.
Yeah, it's Second World War where the Germans have surrendered and then they all have to go home, but then we force them to clear all the landmines that they left there. So it's very relevant. It's a really good film. It's a war film. It's about landmines, kind of also very appropriate. And then there's another one. I think it's to understanding Danish culture. It's called what's it called in English? Another Round. It's had a cinema release here. It's all about some school teachers and stuff. Really kind of funny, interesting insight into Danish culture. So
it's actually one of my favorites.
Oh, really?
It's really a good one. Are you morning person or night?
Yeah, both. Yeah, I don't know. I work best in the morning. I need to get up and get to work right away without any bullshit. But then I really like to stay out in the evening and be sociable. So I have these two polar opposites. You know, I like to be alone and work or at the office, and then I like to be very sociable in the evening. So yeah, both. 24-hour.
Car or a bike?
Bike. I'm
Your
from Copenhagen,
favorite.
the best city in the world for bikes. I have a bike in Kyiv, but I don't use it very often because it's so stupid to ride a bike here. It's just a pain in the ass. So, but I do have a bike here. But yeah, always bikes.
Like, yeah, we don't really have those, roads for bikes. It's not really for bikes. There are not a lot of people
No.
who ride them.
No, that's why my first book that was published in Ukrainian in 2022 is called Copenhagenized. It's the book about how to design cities for bikes, and it came out in Ukrainian in 22. That was kind of cool. There was only 150 books published in Ukraine that year because the war. But mine was one of them. So yeah, I've literally written a book about how Kyiv can become much more bicycle friendly.
What was the last book you read?
I'm reading it at the moment. It's called The End of Elsewhere. Sorry, it's about the history of tourism, all the weird ways we do tourism. Sorry, and how how tourism started. So yeah, random, but that's what I'm reading.
Do you have your favorite interior style?
Interview style.
Interior, like Scandinavian, modern.
Oh, totally Danish design. Do you have any coffee or water? Let's see a sip of water. Thanks. Danish design. In Denmark, we're a design country. Children have design lessons in the 3rd grade. So anything that's Scandinavian, hardwood floors, minimalistic design, beautifully designed chairs and lamps, that's then I'm in my safe zone.
What kind of music Mikael Colville-Andersen listens to?
Oh, I never listen to music. And so I'm the weirdest guy you'll ever meet about music. I never, ever, ever in my life, I'm working thinking, oh, I'm going to put on some music. Like music for me is like a distraction. It stops me from thinking my own thoughts. But during COVID, that was boring. So I started making playlists on Spotify. And at the office, we listen to music. So at the moment we're listening to we're going through all the genres of house music. So today is lo-fi house. So, I like the blues as well. I listen to the blues a lot. I like the music from my time, the 80s, all the songs I listened to when I was, 17, I have a cool playlist for that. So yeah, it's a mix, but like I said, there's not always music playing.
If you had an opportunity to say some message about Ukraine, what would you like to say?
Who am I saying it to? Ukrainians or the rest of the world?
For the rest of the world.
Yeah. It's just, kind of boring. It's not a boring answer, but it's kind of the same thing. You always talk about how resilient Ukrainians are. And everybody in the world was talking about that back in 22. So yeah, that probably just more of a reminder to the world that, the struggle continues here and Ukrainians are tired as fuck of this invasion. There's not the same vibe as there was in 22, but everybody just keeps marching on, trying to make things better, trying to get on with their daily lives. So that resilience is inspiring to me every single day. So, we always said back then, fight like Ukrainians, but I always say you got to volunteer like Ukrainians, because that's been the greatest experience of my life, is like getting 1,000 volunteers to build some stupid therapy garden in the middle of nowhere. That's pretty cool. So yeah, just don't forget how resilient Ukrainians are, even though you've forgotten all about Ukraine.
Thank you for joining me. Tusen
No
takk.
problem.
I have
Yeah, tack.